firstly to Professor James, if I may, and then Jess Garland and any others who want to come in. Other minority groups have also expressed concerns to us regarding potential disenfranchisement, you know, prevention from being able to vote. So what level of disenfranchisement is likely with the government's proposals in this bill across a range of groups?
It's a great question. I mean, I think in terms of terminology, disenfranchisement is often kind of used. I think what is clear is that from the case of Northern Ireland, that 2.3% of the population had additional things they had to do in order to go and cast their ballot, which meant that they didn't, in effect, take part in that election. So, you know, scaled up, for a UK parliamentary election, that's something of the order of 1.1 million people. And as we've heard already, you know, the government's own research points to how it doesn't kind of fall evenly across the population. We've already heard there about the elderly. Actually, the government's own research points to unemployed citizens being less likely to have identification, those with severely limiting disability, as well as those without qualifications. And I think the trans and gender non-conforming individuals are a particularly vulnerable group in this process there as well, who the government's research shows are much less likely to have a form of ID. So these are amongst the groups that could be adversely affected. But broadly speaking, 2.3% sounds like a reasonable expectation.
Yes, it's these groups that Toby mentioned there, and then the Electoral Commission research as well backs that up. It's people who are unemployed, people who are renting from their council, people who have a disability who are more likely not to have the ID. We also know from the government's research that 42% of those people who don't have ID say they wouldn't apply for the free elector card. So, you know, that is clearly not going to solve the problems here. And it's also, you know, it's not just whether people have ID. Other people have said, you know, it's actually whether this gives people, has a chilling effect. You know, people who are already hesitant to take part in the system might feel like this is just one step too far and might not feel welcome. And that's a real concern. I just wanted to pick up on that point about the 2% from the government research, 2% of people not having any form of ID. That actually includes unrecognisable ID. If you just have, that's out of date, and unrecognisable IDs allowed. If you say ID's got to be recognisable, that actually increases to 4% of people don't have the right ID, which again is a huge number of people across the population. So, you know, I think that's a legitimate question right now is, are we saying this scheme includes unrecognisable photos as well? And again, just picking up on those points made earlier about the pressure put on staff in the polling stations.